Okay, I'll call this meeting to order. It's the Select Standing Committee on Finance and Government Services, and today we're starting the review of and updates of the statutory officers. And the first statutory officer that we're meeting with today is the Office of the Conflict of Interest Commissioner, and who has basically going to give us a kind of a check-in on where this office is at with its work following the meetings that we had in February. So with that, I will turn it over to the Conflict of Interest Commissioner, Victoria Gray, to take it from here.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, Mr. Deputy Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for this opportunity to talk about the Conflict of Interest Commissioner's Office. And also online is Carol Hoyer, and that's our office's executive coordinator. She has the greatest familiarity with budget matters, and hopefully if you have any questions there can help you. Now I just got a message to turn on my video, so which I thought was on, so I'm sorry. Jennifer, can you tell me how to do that?
It looks like your video might be on. Perhaps there's something covering your camera.
No, I mean I tested it a while ago and it came on. Okay, it just gave me a chance. Did that work? Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry about that. All right, well, nice to see. I can see not everybody because I can see most of you, but it's nice. I had a chance to meet all of you recently, and in connection with the annual financial disclosure. So I had my 2021 meetings with each of the 87 MLAs, and all those were virtual meetings. So there were 4 topics I wanted to cover today. And first is a short reminder of the role of my office. Second, some discussion of our budget and the likelihood of an overage. Third, some discussion about our work in 2020 and the first 5 months of 2021. And finally, briefly, my expectations for our office after pandemic restrictions are removed. So first, a quick review of the role of my office. My office is the smallest statutory office, but we have an important role. We seek to maintain the integrity of the members and to enhance the public perception of the integrity of the decisions of the legislature.
Excuse me, Victoria, we're having a hard time hearing you.
Oh dear. Well, I'm sorry. Is there a... Mostly I've used Teams and haven't had problems, but so I'm not as familiar with Zoom. Is there a place I can increase the volume?
Are you using a headset?
Yes, I am. Do you think it'd be better to try just the...
No,
I mean, I can hold... Is that any better, holding the microphone up close? No?
Vicky, what if you take it off?
Sorry, take the...
Yeah, it's not coming through. It's not coming through your headset.
Sorry, I didn't hear that because I took the headset off.
Okay, let's try it again. Maybe just, slower and louder to make up for the fact that we can't hear you that well.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. I started saying there were 4 topics I wanted to address. First is a reminder of the role of my office. Second, some discussion of our budget and the likelihood of an overage. Third, our work in 2020 and the first 5 months of 2021. And finally, briefly, my expectations for our office after removal of the pandemic restrictions. Is that any better?
Somewhat.
Somewhat. Carol is shaking her head. I'm not even at home. I've come into the office because I thought that would be the best technically. So I'm at a loss as to what to try. So I'll just try to be slow and loud. So our office is the smallest statutory office. We have an important role. We seek to maintain the integrity of the members and to enhance the public perception of the integrity of the decisions of the legislature and its various decision-making entities. Our role is described in the Members' Conflict of Interest Act. Our work focuses on three things. First, helping MLAs to understand the conflict rules and assisting them to comply by giving advice, often in writing and often in short time frames when issues arise. Second, helping MLAs navigate the financial disclosure requirements of the Act. And third, responding to complaints and requests for public opinions. And those requests and complaints can come from MLAs or from members of the public. In addition, we work with comparable offices across Canada in coordinating the development of best practices. Any better?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I'll turn to our budget. Our 2020 annual report is still in draft, but I do have some figures for you. And I'll refer to the fiscal year ending a couple of months ago on March 31, 2021. Our budget remains the smallest of all the statutory offices. For the fiscal year ending a couple of months ago, our budget appropriation was $734,000. The actual cost was $631,329. The difference of about $102,600 was primarily due to the absence of travel and professional services expenses. Ordinarily, my office participates in national and international conferences. In 2020 and so far in 2021, the conferences have proceeded virtually rather than in person. One conference later this year, late 2021, may proceed in person, so we may incur travel expenses for attending that. But because of the pandemic, our travel expenses for 2020 and so far in 2021 have been less than budgeted. Our most significant budget items are salaries and benefits. I work on a 75% of full-time basis. 2 of the 3 staff members are full-time and 1 works 60% time. So the staff time is 2.6 FTEs, and including me, we are 3.35 FTEs. The legislature is our landlord, and our office space is at the red brick building at 421 Menzies. Prior to the pandemic, members found this location convenient for meetings, and we also enjoyed a proximity to the Legislative Assembly. Our discretionary expenses remain low in large part because of the reasonable rent we pay. Apart from the work related to MLA financial disclosure, our work is driven by complaints and requests for opinions. As such, it is highly unpredictable what will come in the door and with what degree of urgency. Conducting inquiries and delivering formal public written opinions is very time-consuming but necessary. The public is entitled to know that the Members' Conflict of Interest Act is understood and applied by MLAs in their work. I have not yet been required to investigate a complaint and issue a formal public written opinion. I know from my experience as a lawyer and judge that such investigations and opinions call upon the office's resources in a significant way. Maintaining public confidence in our MLAs arises from the important upstream work of assisting MLAs to prevent conflicts from arising and to manage unavoidable conflicts. We do this by providing information, guidance, and advice in a timely way. So the caveat which my office has routinely applied to budget requests is that we may need to come back to this committee if we need additional resources in order to deal with an unexpectedly high volume of complaints requiring inquiries and opinions, or if the office is the subject of another application for judicial review. So in the meeting back in February, we were asked how significant was the risk that I would be coming back to request additional resources. This is very difficult to predict. It depends on the nature of any complaints or requests for public opinions. Some of them, and perhaps many of them, can be handled within our budget. An example of that is the public opinion issued by Acting Commissioner Smith regarding then MLA, now Minister Callum. Other complaints might result in significant expense, such as an investigation requiring my office to retain outside legal counsel. For example, in early 2001, so 20 years ago, former Commissioner Oliver issued an opinion that former Premier Clark had influenced a decision regarding approval of a casino. Commissioner Oliver hired legal counsel for the questioning of witnesses as part of his investigation. About 5 years ago, former Commissioner Fraser issued an opinion that exclusive fundraising events and annual payments to Premier Christy Clark were not contrary to the Members' Conflict of Interest Act. An organization named Democracy Watch challenged that decision, and the challenge proceeded to judicial review hearings in both the BC Supreme Court and the BC Court of Appeal in 2017. The BC Supreme Court concluded that a decision of the Conflict of Interest Commissioner is not subject to judicial review. The Court of Appeal did not address the merits of the appeal on the basis that it was moot because Christy Clark had ceased to be an MLA and Premier following an election. So for both the Glenn Clark investigation and the Democracy Watch court hearings, my office requested and obtained funding additional to the usual budget. So a very rough estimate would be that my office has sought additional funding every 5 or so years. So I'll turn now to the work of my office. A significant part of our work relates to managing the financial disclosure obligations for MLAs. This work includes preparation of the public disclosure statements, which will be posted online through the clerk's office, and notices of material change. The election call affected this work in 2020. I was in the process of annual meetings with MLAs when the election was called. I had met with 36 of the 87 MLAs. The dissolution of the legislature by the election call meant that there were no MLAs to meet with me, no MLAs to seek advice or be the subject of complaints, and no need for MLAs to file notices of material change. We took the opportunity during the election period to revise and update the bulletins we make available to MLAs. They are on our website. The bulletins regarding sponsored travel and regarding letters of reference and support were updated. Many of the cabinet members of the 41st Parliament retired both from cabinet and as MLAs. And as a result, I prepared a new bulletin regarding responsibilities post-political office. So in contrast to 2020, I have now had my 2021 meeting with each of the 87 MLAs. The forms used by MLAs for financial disclosure are in need of technical upgrading. The forms are almost 10 years old. We plan to update them, and we hope that we can do that within our existing budget. In 2019, we had 75 requests for advice from MLAs. We had about the same number, 76, in 2020. In the first 5 months of 2021, we had already had 59 such requests. So that's over 75% of the figure for all 12 months of 2020. I attribute the large number of requests for opinions to the large number of new MLAs, new members of cabinet, and new parliamentary secretaries, all settling into their new positions and ensuring compliance with the conflict of interest legislation. In 2020, we had 11 requests for an inquiry, and that was similar to the figure of 9 for 2019. So far in 2021, we have only had 2. I don't have an explanation for this, unless it is that people are focused on the pandemic, or hopefully that everyone thinks our MLAs are behaving appropriately. So far, I have not been required to investigate a complaint or conduct an inquiry. There have been concerns raised by the public which did not meet the threshold for me to conduct an investigation. Historically, there's usually been about 1 public investigation or inquiry per year. Of course, I do not wish an investigation on any member. Our office has worked collaboratively with other offices and agencies on matters of shared interest. For example, we worked with the Office of the Lobbyist Registrar to coordinate our brochure on MLAs accepting gifts and benefits with that office's brochure about lobbyists reporting on gifts they provide to MLAs. We worked with the Clerk's Office and the Information and Privacy Commissioner's Office on issues leading to the online posting of members' public disclosure statements. We're participating in the Statutory Officers Committee on the implementation of DRIPA, the Declaration on Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act. We also participate in meetings with the other statutory officers on issues of common concern. We made presentations to interested MLAs and to incoming legislative interns. We anticipate that at some point in the future, we will be consulting extensively with the Ministry of the Attorney General and the Legislative Committee to update the Members' Conflict of Interest Act, either in accordance with the legislative review in 2012 or for a new legislative review. Our continuing work includes the timely response to requests from members for opinions and assistance, and from the public about possible complaints. I cannot discuss the opinions given to members in any detail because they are confidential to members. Our practice is not to publicize inquiries from the public unless they lead to an inquiry and public opinion. Our priorities and goals remain working to preserve the integrity of the members of the legislature and the public perception of them and our provincial government through providing timely confidential advice to members and timely and thorough responses to complaints. So I turn finally to the question of the impact on my office of the lifting of restrictions imposed by the pandemic, something we are all looking forward to, I imagine. We have adapted well to the need for remote work. I anticipate that my staff and I will continue to do a significant amount of work remotely, but that we will work as needed from the Menzies Street office. I also anticipate that in the future, MLAs will have the option of attending their annual meetings with me either virtually or in person. And I expect that many MLAs will choose to meet virtually. I don't expect any changes to our budget related to changes in the amount of our remote work. So in conclusion, it's been my honor to serve since January 6, 2020 as Commissioner. It's been my delight to work with the staff of the office who are experienced, professional, good-natured, cooperative, creative, and fun. Thanks for your attention, and I'll try to answer any questions you may have with Carol's assistance.
Thank you, Commissioner Gray. Do any of the members have any questions? Pam?
Yeah, not a question, but just a comment. Thank you for the comprehensive report that you sent along and easy to follow and everything else. So thank you for all the good work that you do.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Ben?
Yeah, thanks very much. Thanks very much, Chair. Commissioner Gray, thanks very much. Excellent report. Just you started off by talking about the budget, and I must have missed your comment on that. Is your budget forecast expected to be within your forecast that you presented in February?
Yes, in fact, less.
Less, okay.
We were about over $100,000 less in the
Yep.
fiscal year just ended. And that's because of travel, primarily travel and no professional. We haven't had to hire any lawyers, any outside professional assistants. So yes, within budget.
Lauren?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. I know it's hard to obviously project or anticipate what kind of cases you might get into, but with respect to the two cases you were talking about, what kind of a cost were those? I mean, can you give some kind of an indication of what extra cost there was attached to those?
I don't have that information. Carol, do you have any idea? It predates both me and Carol, I'm afraid.
Okay, no
Carol,
problem. I was just curious what the cost associated with a study that that thick might be.
Yeah, my guess would be that with the Glenn Clark, that it was very significant. I would guess it would have been in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I would guess that in the judicial reviews that it was more in the total $100,000 range. That would be my guess as a former lawyer and judge, although it could well be out of date. Carol, do you have any better numbers?
I did some digging, and it came to about $30,000 back in 2013.
We had an echo, but I think we could hear you.
Yeah. Did you get it?
$30,000, 2013.
Yes. Yeah. I'm glad you got that much. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Do
you
we
very
have?
much.
Thanks, Lauren. Do we have any other questions? Well, why don't I just wrap it up by thanking you for your patience with the technological challenges and for your very thorough report. I think you covered all the bases, and yes, I think it's very clear to us what you do, the importance of it, and what it costs, and what the expectations are. So thank you very much. With
Thank
that,
you.
we will let you go.
My pleasure. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
I have to figure out how to go. Uh-oh.
Bottom corner.
Okay, so we are running a bit early. So the suggestion from Jennifer is that we use this time to check in on our public consultations. Okay, so over to you, Jennifer.
Perhaps members might like to entertain a motion to go in camera.
Oh, sorry. Ben, that's so Ben has moved that we move into in camera. Any debate, discussion, all in favor? Okay, we're now in camera. Thank Okay, if everyone is ready, I'll welcome our next presenters from the Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner. And Commissioner, I see you there. This is your opportunity to check in with us. I believe you've received some guidance from the clerk's office, basically to be guided by our report from February, and to highlight areas of interest. And I think specifically you were asked if you have any observations about how restart after COVID would be applicable, if you could answer that as well. So over to you.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, Honorable Chair, Deputy Chair, and members of the committee. I trust this afternoon finds you all well on a day when we recognize, observe, and celebrate National Indigenous Peoples Day. It's an opportunity, I think, to reflect on actions we take towards reconciliation and the work that we do every day. And today I would like to acknowledge that I am standing on the traditional territories of the Kwanghan people, also known as the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations. Joining me this afternoon are Deputy Commissioners Oline Twist and Jeanette Vandenbalk. Also here, as always, to assist is David Van Sweeten, Executive Director of Shared Services, who serves in this capacity for the 4 officers of the Legislature headquartered at 947 Fort Street. Thank you once again for the opportunity to meet and discuss the work of the Office of the Information Privacy Commissioner and the Office of the Registrar of Lobbyists for British Columbia. The opportunity to do this, in addition to the once-a-year budget submission, is deeply appreciated, and it reflects the importance we place on our own accountability to the public through this legislative committee. Before reviewing the recent work of our office, I want to first address your request, Chair, for an update on office preparations in light of health restrictions being gradually eased. In March of 2020, our operation shifted quickly in order to adapt to the changes wrought by the COVID pandemic. The majority of our staff commenced work from home, and measures were taken to ensure that that was done safely and securely. This has continued to be the case to date. Looking ahead, our leadership team is assessing the short, medium, and long-term operational needs of the office in determining the shape of our workplace going forward. We will consider the views of our entire staff on matters such as office sharing and work-at-home options as we assess the best use of the dollars provided by the Legislature, and we'll do that in a considered and careful manner. It is, as you will appreciate, a work in progress, and I will be in a position to report in more detail at our November presentation. I would now like to turn to some of the recent work and accomplishments of the OIPC. I've now had the opportunity to review the preliminary numbers from last fiscal year and can share that overall the volume of files received by our office continued at about the same rate as in previous years. It's a tribute to our team that we were able to maintain continuity of service to the public and process those files received commensurate with previous years, despite a restructured work environment. Our office continues to respond to the many questions by the public and the media about how our privacy and access statutes apply in the pandemic. This is not surprising, given that COVID-19 has generated many new issues engaging both privacy and access. At its outset, the pandemic posed challenges for access to information operations for a number of public bodies. In some cases, the move to working from home for many public bodies initially made it difficult for them to gather hard copy records. In light of these extraordinary circumstances, as you may know, in March 2020, I provided public bodies additional time of up to 30 days to process access to information requests. This extension only applied to requests received between March 1st and May 15th of 2020. After that, public bodies were expected to adjust to a new normal, which included the ability to use the time extension mechanisms available under FIPPA if that were appropriate. Time extensions can support public bodies in responding to requests, but they must, of course, be considered alongside one of the Act's key purposes, which is to ensure public body accountability. I'm aware that some public bodies, particularly those on the front lines of responding to the pandemic, have found it challenging to meet their FOI obligations. At the same time, these are often the same public bodies whose actions are of most concern to the public during the time of pandemic and therefore warrant transparency. My staff and I continue to utilize the balancing mechanisms in the legislation to support both access operations and the Act's purposes. COVID-19 has also, of course, touched upon issues relating to the protection of people's personal information. Vaccine passports and related matters have put matters of privacy protection squarely before my office, as well as society as a whole. These issues are not unique to British Columbia, and in fact are in many instances linked to national and international considerations. For this reason, we are deeply engaged in discussions with regulatory colleagues nationally and internationally as we consider approaches to the challenges we are commonly confronting. Just a few weeks ago, together with our federal, provincial, and territorial counterparts, we released a joint resolution and statement on the issue of vaccine passports. We reinforced the fact that passports could be a very useful tool to getting our lives back on a more normal footing, but that privacy needed to be front and center if such instruments are to have the confidence and trust of Canadians. I've also had conversations with my fellow BC officers, Jay Chalk and Kasari Governor, on this issue as it relates to the fairness and human rights of British Columbians. I think it's clear to all of us that based on discussions in public forums, it is safe to say British Columbians care deeply about these issues. Our office's collaboration on these matters also extend beyond our national borders. The relationships British Columbia has built with our counterparts in the Asia Pacific region have proven especially important. And I would like to thank and restate our appreciation to the committee for its continuing support of our role as Secretariat to the Asia Pacific Privacy Authorities. BC plays a prominent and respected role on this international stage. Last week, APA held its 55th forum, hosted virtually by the Republic of Korea's Personal Information Protection Commission and assisted by our office as APA's Secretariat. 19 member organizations and approximately 100 attendees participated in this three-day forum of enforcement discussions, jurisdictional updates, and collaboration on many of the key privacy issues we face today, including biometrics, the impact of COVID-19 on privacy issues, facial recognition technology, and how to promote global interoperability in data protection. The issue of interoperability is of particular interest to British Columbians, as we find ourselves in the midst of legislative reviews of both our public and private sector legislation. Our office was also honored to be named host of the 56th forum to be held virtually in December of this year. I'd also like to update the committee on reports and guidance produced by our office since our last appearance. In February, we released a joint investigation report together with our colleagues in Quebec, Alberta, and the Office of the Privacy Commissioner of Canada on Clearview AI's use of facial recognition technology. The company developed technology that scraped over 3 billion images from the web, including Canadians and children. The technology was engineered in a way that allowed law enforcement and commercial organizations to match photographs of unknown people against those images. We found that Clearview AI's downloading of images of people from across the internet represented mass surveillance and was a clear violation of the privacy rights of Canadians. This mass surveillance creates unwarranted intrusion into the lives of millions of Canadians, the vast majority of whom have never been and never will be implicated in a crime. While Clearview has stopped selling its product to Canadian clients, they have disagreed in part with our findings, and we continue to work with our colleagues to bring the company into compliance with Canadian privacy laws. Related to this, privacy regulators in every province and territory are working together to develop guidance for law enforcement on the use of facial recognition technology. This guidance was made available for public consultation earlier this month, and we will post the finalized document on our website when that is complete. In May, we launched our Commissioner's Speaker Series, a series of events presented virtually and that brings together experts to discuss current access and privacy issues. I recently hosted the first event, which focused on privacy in the age of COVID-19. The panel consisted of former BC Commissioner David Lucadelis, former Privacy Commissioner of Canada, Jennifer Stoddard, and the current Privacy Commissioner of New Zealand, John Edwards. We discussed a number of issues, including how the pandemic has exponentially escalated digital trends and growth, further highlighting the urgent need for privacy reform. We launched the Commissioner Speaker Series on May 4th during our Privacy Awareness Week celebrations. Privacy Awareness Week is a global effort coordinated by members of the Asia Pacific Privacy Authority to promote awareness of privacy issues and the importance of protecting personal information. During the week, we issued guidance for organizations collecting personal information online, highlighted additional relevant guidance for individuals, organizations, and public bodies. And we participated in 3 separate speaking events, including our own panel. I'm pleased that these virtual presentations are reaching an ever wider range of stakeholders. The first commissioner panel had almost 200 attendees, with many additional views resulting from its online availability on our YouTube channel. I believe the link has been shared with you committee members in advance of this presentation. Just last week, we released a joint investigation report with the BC Ombudsperson and the Yukon Ombudsperson and Privacy Commissioner, looking at the challenges and fairness and privacy arising from the use of artificial intelligence, or AI, in the public sector. The report explores the regulatory challenges that come with new and intricate technology and provides some best practices and general guidance for public bodies when implementing AI. We will provide you a link to the report for your perusal, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to collaborate with my BC and Yukon colleagues. Finally, tomorrow morning, we will be releasing our review of private sector liquor and cannabis retailers, which will focus on the privacy management practices of licensed retailers in this sector. We conduct these kinds of audits and compliance reviews from time to time to assess how effectively public bodies and private sector organizations protect the personal information of British Columbians and how they comply with the access provisions under our public and private sector legislation. This review included 30 liquor and cannabis retailers. We chose this specific sector based on the particularly sensitive personal information collected by these businesses, media stories about them, and calls our office has received regarding their collection, use, and disclosure of personal information, including driver's licenses, facial recognition images, and recently, due to the pandemic, thermal temperatures. I will share with you a link to the report once it is released tomorrow morning. I'll now turn to some of the recent work with the Office of the Registrar of Lobbyists. As you know, the Lobbyist Transparency Act, or LTA, designates me as the registrar for the ORL by virtue of my position as Information and Privacy Commissioner. My responsibilities as registrar under the LTA include a mandate to establish and maintain a registry for lobbyists and to oversee and enforce compliance with the Act. Over the past few months, we have moved forward with the process of creating and hiring additional positions for the ORL, including a registry and compliance officer and an education and research analyst. I would like to thank the committee for recommending that government approve our 2021-22 budget request to add these positions to the ORL team. They will provide much needed support to our frontline work, which has seen a 300% increase in individual requests for information about the lobbying rules and the registry, and they will support our education and compliance work relating to the latest amendments to the Act. And we continue to work to educate lobbyists and the public on those recent changes to the Act and the registry. Since our February appearance, we have published 3 guidance documents. One is a comprehensive guide for those new to the registry. Another provides information about recent updates to the registry that streamline registering funding information. And the third is guidance for those lobbying provincial entities such as government corporations. The office has also participated in 3 virtual speaking events to specific sectors. These events are an important way for us to not only talk about the Act and recent amendments, but to hear from stakeholders and the questions they have. Our May issue of our newsletter, which is done in electronic form, called Influencing BC, has been included in our list of resources sent to you prior to our appearance today. As you peruse it, you will see that we have featured information on the gift-giving rules. On this topic, we are focused on clarifying for lobbyists that the LTA permits only certain gifts or benefits to be given, and that all gifts must be declared in the registry when they are promised or given to public office holders. The public education work continues and will ramp up over the coming year as the new positions we are in the process of hiring are integrated into our team. The goal continues to be ensuring that the legislation is understood so that lobbies achieve a high rate of compliance with the Act. Our office is also slated to host the annual meeting of federal, provincial, and territorial lobbying commissioners in Victoria in the end of September. This meeting is an opportunity for me and my counterparts across the country to exchange information and best practices in education, compliance, and enforcement work that supports transparency in lobbying. I'd like to conclude my time this afternoon with a brief review of the 2020-21 financials. While these 2021 fiscal numbers are still to be verified, we are projecting a grant surplus of $276 for our operating budget. on a total budget of 6.942 million. We also spent 27,595 on our capital budget of the 29,000 allocated, leaving a total of $1,405. I look forward to presenting the final numbers when I'm back before you in the fall. I wish to thank the committee for recommending that government approve our 2021-22 budget request to cover additional service levels and ongoing cost pressures. The additional funds are being put to work to support oversight of the amendments to the lobbying legislation, provide funds to contract for technical expertise on complex technology investigations, and for the office to begin to prepare for the transition to an updated case file management system. Before I invite your questions, I did want to finish where I began this presentation, and that is to acknowledge the absolutely incredible work being done by everyone at the OIPC and the ORL. The work of our team has been and has supported the continuity of operations under the unique pressures brought on by the pandemic. In a word, their service has been exemplary, and it's my privilege to work with each and every one of them. With that, Chair, I thank you and the committee for your attention this afternoon. My team and I would now be pleased to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Before I open it up for questions and observations, I guess my observation is that as you've described your work and the highlights of your work, I can't help but be reminded that all of us talk about what a year it's been, and it's been a year like none other. And there's so many things we've had to grapple with that we never thought about before, and that in your report today, you've shone a light on some of the deeper complexities of what it means to try to function as a society during a pandemic and maintain human rights and functionality. And that you've also pointed out that much of this is uncharted territory,
Yeah.
and that you're playing a leadership role in charting that territory. So thank you.
Thank you.
Questions, observations, discussion? What, did I steal everyone's thunder?
Yes. Well, your observation is so right, Madam Chair, and it's I'm not sure why, but sometimes, particularly in the privacy side of things, we find ourselves as kind of first responders in some of these issues. It's not solely us. Clearly, there are many other considerations, but we often find ourselves to the front line and engaging in discussions. But I mean, these are, as you know, these are society-wide discussions, and there may be issues that come directly before us as a result of those things, and you know, it may be we are in a position of having to make some decisions about them, but it's really important that we be discussing as a community, as British Columbians, kind of some of these approaches to issues.
Yes, I think so. Ben, did I see your hand up?
Thanks very much, Chair. Commissioner, I just wanted to thank you for your good work. And I know from dealing with you in the past, it isn't always easy. And you just described a couple of things about some of the challenges that have been presented with the vaccine passport. And I guess I'm just kind of wondering, these things kind of emerge, but what do you see on the horizon in terms of cost and dealing with that? Or is it too early to really kind of address kind of the impact of something like this that's going to be, I think, relatively sudden, and I'm just not quite certain how facial recognition is going to fit in with passports and things like that.
That is a really good question, and I do think it is. Well, it's too early, but on the other hand, events are moving rapidly. And for example, on the passport issue, things are moving rapidly as you know, there's a great desire to open international borders. And there's a question about, in doing that, if it's a requirement to have a vaccine, how that's proven and verified. And in my view, there is a right way and a wrong way to do that. It's an important tool, but it really does have to ensure that in whatever its architecture, that it properly protects people's information so that they can have confidence in that tool. I would say that in our discussions, our office's discussions with the British Columbia government, I do believe that they are going in the right direction in the kind of architecture that they are trying to design. But of course, it's a complicated question because it's something not just in British Columbia, but there has to be interaction with provinces across the country and the federal government, who ultimately will show Canada's face to the world when it comes to checking into an airport overseas or wherever that might be in the United States. So those questions right now are being discussed, and our office, my colleagues across the country, are engaging in conversations with information officers from across the country at a governmental level, because we really want to ensure that whatever credential is developed, that it's going to be one that will have the trust and confidence of British Columbians and Canadians. So it is very much an immediate and ongoing work, and to be determined as to what the outcome is going to be.
Pam.
Thanks.
Thank you. Along those lines, I know we're looking at perhaps July 21st as the border opens. So will this work be completed by then so that the appropriate measures can be implemented on the 21st? Like, how are we with respect to timelines?
I think things are very much moving along at a very quick pace from what our understanding of matters are. I know we will be involved in some discussions, I believe, on Wednesday of this week with, again, my counterparts across the country and with government officials to talk about the architecture of a possible solution that gets us to July 21st and beyond. What we don't want to do is rush into a solution that is going to not serve us well in the long term. But again, there is an immediate need to get this process to completion so that we are able to get back to, I'm not sure normal would be the right word, but at least some semblance of a move towards normalcy.
Thank you very much. And just fascinating topics. And you're on certainly the cutting edge for all of us. And so I greatly appreciate the work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, Commissioner, it sounds like you gave us a very thorough presentation, very thorough briefing, covered a lot of things, and not a lot of vague areas that we felt we needed to dig into. So with that, I would thank you and your staff and your deputy commissioners for your time and for all of the important work that you do.
Thank you, and thank you to the committee for the work you do in this oversight, which is so critical. And I wish you all well this summer.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Commissioner.
So the suggestion is that since we have some time, that we go into camera, back in camera to finish discussions about planning for the public consultations this fall. So, so Pam is moving that we go in camera. All those in favor? Thank you very much. We'll now go in camera. camera. So we have completed our meetings for today. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Harwinder moves adjournment. Everyone moves adjournment. Okay, all in favor. Okay, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.